Now it booped.
Now it does boop. Good. I does boop at this.
Good. I forgot where I was with that one anyway. But
weed control.
But so the thing is the bahia has gone to seed, and I will trim this off the front end of it, and not completely. I'm going to give it another couple of days to go heavily to seed, and then once the seed pods turn black, they're actually ready to be replanted. So when I mow and then scatter them, it'll be seeding.
Sweet.
Using the existing bahia.
Cool.
Hey, Patreons.
Hi, welcome to Lawn Talk with Kevin and Scott.
Now you're going to make me leave that section in.
No, you can take it out. We were just talking lawns.
Yeah, and most of the world doesn't have a clue what bahia is.
Yeah. You know, it's hard to believe that 3 weeks ago we recorded an episode and we wore the same clothes. Hey, Patreons, by the way, we front load these.
Video will go dark for a moment while no.
For those of you that asked, by the way, the pictures that we showed, WranglerFix.com, contact Mark on them. He can take care of it for you.
Yeah, Mark's the owner, and he's the one who knows who sets those things up.
Yep, so he'll get you in the right direction.
Thanks again, Mark.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So this is show 96, and
Hi, Jeepers. Welcome to another episode of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I would be Scott, your most illustrious slapstick parts guy, on a continual mission of this plane of Earth to, I don't know what season we're on.
He started off so well.
I don't know what season we are on this TV show called Earth, but hey, on that note, with that saying, I am also your slapstick parts guy. We will always share that I don't what I'm doing. We're going to leave that one in for you guys. Darn it.
Hey, I'm Kevin, the engineer, the tech guy, the one who reads the instructions, follows them, uses the right tools, and remembers our intro. While we will share what worked for us as well as what didn't. Please, make your own choices. Do your research. Read the instructions
and follow them. See, that's my only line. The sad part is when we started this adventure in 2016, almost a year ago, or 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago. I'm the one that came to you.
We were accused of reading our scripts a little too literally.
Exactly. And the worst part is I came to you and said, hey, Kevin, let's do a podcast. You said, great, what's a podcast?
Exactly.
And I'm the one that keeps dropping the ball. So with that said, welcome to show number 96, everyone.
And I wish you guys could see it. The Patreons can, as Scott has it written down on a little yellow sticky note and the best part of it is his handwriting is worse than mine, so he can't even read his own notes.
And thank you for not saying that I wrote it 3 times on 3 different Post-it notes. I'm like, can I have another one? What? And he just slid the thing over to me and says, here, da-da-da-da. No, scrumble, 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 throw. Scrumble, 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 throw.
And I just got the refill pack from Amazon yesterday.
Now I know what to get you for next week.
Accordion fold 3x3.
Accordion fold 3x3. Oh, hey. Now that we're on the real show, hey guys, for those of you that saw the pictures of the Mark sent us, WranglerFix.com, he can get you set up. But anyways, real quickly though, don't forget Crawl for the Fallen. The pre-registration is open, so take a few minutes to visit their website. I'll put in the show notes. But I have a quick question though.
By the way, Zorb from the planet Zulu just called and he said you're his favorite Earth character and he's glad you survived last season.
Yes. Technically, the 3-to-1 odds. I was making a joke about Yellowstone erupting. I can't now because it's getting rumbly up there. So, anyways, this is a Jeep podcast.
It is.
Yes, it is. So, I have a.
And I know we got a little off topic on the last show. We're sorry, folks, but you guys, there isn't a diesel Jeep other than the now no longer sold Grand. So,
well, see, we try and hit off questions because it's like, hey, what do you guys think of the Grand Cherokee or the diesel Jeep? Okay, well, here's what we think. Well, why? Okay, well, here's why we think of why. Well, how? Okay, so we try and my manager always talks to me about this. He's like, hey, Scott, what time is it?
Anticipate.
Well, yeah, so I'll tell him how the watch is made. He goes, I just want to know the time. No, because when I tell you the time, you're going to say, well, what have you done? So I'm just heading it off at the pass, like I'm doing now. But anyways. Because the Facebook is such a plethora of fun. Quick question, though. And it actually happened to me because I'm actually starting to sell all of the stuff I took off the JK.
Yeah.
Like the trail doors that wouldn't fit the Gladiator, no matter how much
did you get for the dog hair?
I don't know, but how much could dog hair if a dog hair could dog hair? Oh my God, it's already off the rails. So anyways, guys, we have a lot of fun with this. No, but I started thinking about it because one of the people asked me, and I saw this actually on a post recently, thinking about selling his illustrious TJ. Okay. And as he's trying to sell his TJ, he found out that, he's telling him about all the fun he had in it because he wants to sell the TJ. And then the guy goes, okay, I'll be back with more money, leaves, and the guy literally posted on there, I don't know what to do. Now I don't want to sell it. I started reliving all my old memories. And so everyone kind of said, you won't regret it. He goes, yeah, but my wife has a new 2022 door and I love driving it. And I said, well, do what I did, sell the JK, buy the Gladiator, keep your LJ, happy wife, happy life. And then you can drive when you need to. And he's like, I was 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes later in the conversation, I called the guy. He offered more money. So needless to say, he sold his Jeep.
Yep.
And now he's has all his takeoff stuff. And I actually might be talking to a Sport Gladiator, which. It's a little side note. I know I'm a Gladiator rah-rah guy, or Rubicon rah-rah guy. On the Gladiator, I will have to admit a Sport S Max Tow package. If I could kit it out the way what the Gladiator is, I would take the Sport Max Tow because it doesn't have all the gaudy red stitching. And not only that,
and please forgive us for those that like red. Scott just has
I hate the color red. I'm sorry.
Which is funny because the LJ he drives is Arrest Me Red.
So anyways, but beggars can't be choosers.
Strikes again.
Exactly. But also too, I finally had the Gladiator in 4-low and with the 8-speed transmission in first gear and low range. It's as stupidly low as the LJ. I'm like, I could get out and walk and play chess and Jenga and come around the Jeep 3 times before the thing moves an inch. But anyways, I would do it.
I wouldn't recommend that from a safety perspective.
No, not at all. But again, I would do it differently because, like I said, I always talk about the Dana 44's front and rear, yada, yada, yada. I mean, you're getting that with a Gladiator. But more to the point of the story, I know everyone's screaming, get to it, Scott. Stop TikToking. The point is, well, you want to sell your Jeep, And so let's ask a quick question. Why do you want to sell it? Is it because you're bored of it and want a new project? Those are questions that you really should start thinking about before you put the ad up and the person has to come back after visiting the ATM.
Yep.
Make sure you want to sell it. There's some things that you need to think about, like, just covering very quick topics. We'll dig deeper, but like, getting it ready. Should you clean it? Pricing, marketing. Kevin, I know when we sold the JK, I knew the Bartec seat covers weren't going to add value to the Jeep. I took them off. I knew the Delta Light bar wasn't going to add money. I took it off because you could sell those separately. So what I did is I took everything off the Jeep that wasn't physically bolted on.
It didn't need to be operational. But,
and I took it all off because those parts are worth more money because
it's called parting out a vehicle.
Yeah.
And you can take it to an extreme, and there are people that do that. There's companies, be honest with you, there's Jeep junkyards that do that to the total extreme, and they buy it, and they basically will sell every piece except the title.
Yeah.
And for the right...
Moving on.
So... Duly noted, and this is your realm more than mine. I tend to buy vehicles and run them till they need to be reconstructed. But occasionally I'll trade in, but they're usually, mine are a little more straightforward need, for an upgrade or downgrade. But in your case, this is your world. You've worked in the car market, both new and used, for a long time. So this is kind of an interesting flip, folks. The technical expert is on the other side of the table for this show.
I'm wearing the smarty pants.
And that's, of course, a relative term.
Absolutely. This headband feels funny. No, but like people ask all the time, like we'll just get right to the get-go. Basically getting it ready. Do I need to clean my Jeep? Do I need to do... Here's the deal. If you're going to trade it in, and you have over 100,000 miles, the Jeep's going to auction.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring it in dirty. They're mainly looking for missing fenders, bolts, beating up, dents and major stuff like that, because it's going to auction. They're going to get what they can get, and that's going to be it. Your deal is going to fall into the idea of holdback pricing, where they're going to make their money on the holdback pricing of selling the new unit, and not really making any money off yours. Now, if your Jeep's under 100,000 miles, I would spend a little bit extra money. I'd keep it clean. Cleaner vehicles tend to be easier to resell. It's easier to just wipe off the dust on the dash than try to regrow carpet that's been worn away. Take a few minutes and clean. We're going to talk about trading in a vehicle right now.
Okay. Just start with trade-in, not outright sell.
Just the trading. Now, pricing. If you're going to trade in your Jeep, Kelley Blue Book is a way to start, but that's not what you're going to get, because they're using Kelley Blue Book to resell your vehicle.
Right. You have to. There's actually on KBB.com, there's a switch for between the two of selling it outright and trading it in. And the trade-in, and don't be shocked, and a lot of people miss that, the trade-in one is significantly less.
Yes.
Because you are giving it to somebody who then has to service it and remarket it, and they need to make something for that level of effort.
Yeah. You could have a brand new perfect vehicle. Here's the thing, and because we have them, we have vehicles with 11,000 miles on them. You still need to pay a technician to crawl up and down and inside and out of it to verify the brake pad thickness, to verify this, to verify that, because now you're getting to what's called a certified pre-owned, and they actually have to be more stringent. They can't use aftermarket parts if it needs an oil change. They have to really go into, and especially now with the certain pandemic event, vehicles now have to be sanitized.
Yep.
So that's taken off the value of your car. If your car had a lot of rebates, let's say, for instance, a Gladiator, $5,000 rebate. You realize that you're taking the $4,000 driving off the driveway,
Driving hit,
and you're taking another $4,000 hit from the rebate. So you're taking a $9,000 hit off a vehicle that you got a $4,000 rebate on. So they take that money. That's why Ford F-150s always, resell really well, because they don't offer a whole lot of rebates half the time.
Because they move well enough as is.
And that's why Wranglers don't have rebates, and they hold their value, because they move like they are. So when it comes to pricing trade-in wise, bear in mind the Kelley Blue Book is a guide, and definitely push as hard as you can get, but also remember too that they're going to be pushing a lot back.
And what I'd say with the KBB is, use it as a way to check the relative values between two different, situations. You can use. It's a great tool to sit there and say, well, if I call my Jeep's condition excellent versus if I say it's average, or if I say it's poor, what's the spread? And that gives you kind of an idea that we says, well, your Jeep's got this, it's pretty average condition. Well, then you need to mentally go, okay, well, that's a $1,500, $2,000 drop kind of a thing. So it's a guide. It's really a good way to put it. It's a good guide, but it is not gospel. There's nobody holding a gun to the dealer's head to accept KBB price for trade-in.
Yeah, and another thing too, when it comes to pricing your trade-in value, how many people saw that really cool Jeep lifted on 40s with the big wall tires and said, oh, that's the Jeep I want? Most people who are buying Jeeps know that those fetch a premium price, and they don't want to buy them, or the vehicle's been off-roaded. So when it comes to trading your vehicle in, bolt-ons, those are losses.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that money back. Hence why I went ahead and sold as much as I could off the vehicle.
In fact, we know a friend that specializes in used Jeeps. He's got a lot out there that he sells.
Ian at Jeep Depot. I don't mind saying it.
And Ian has a side business of selling winches. He will not sell the winch on the Jeep. So don't think it's an ad. It's actually a cost to a dealer, because there's a liability on a winch and the installation of the winch. He can't certify that it's perfect. And unless somebody accepts it as is with no guarantees, which most people buying even a used Jeep want some form of a warranty, if they can get one. And so he ends up pulling all that stuff off, and he's constantly, every time you buy a new Jeep and get a new custom front bumper and a winch, and you're selling, he goes, oh, who's selling the brand new JL unused? I'll give you $50 for it, for that bumper, for the factory bumper. And he's putting them back on the rigs to basically decustomize them to make them more marketable than the modified ones.
Yeah.
And I know that seems counterintuitive, but that's kind of how it works in the commercial resale. Now, it's different, and we'll get to that when we get to the selling your Jeep person to person section.
Because I hear everyone typing it now. Well, how come the dealership can justify putting a $4,000 2-inch budget lift, a $10,000 wheel and tire package, and sell the Jeep for $20,000 more than what it's worth? Here's the catch: they can finance more than the vehicle on a new vehicle. On a used vehicle, when you do that switch, you're going back before retail and trade-in value, you might have $10,000 in add-ons. Well, they can't justify adding $10,000 to a price on a 3-year-old Jeep. They can't do that. So
it just doesn't work in the used car market. So, and it's not just Jeeps. Understand that
it's everything.
It's any vehicle out there that's been modified.
Yeah.
A lot of times, a financier will actually reduce the value for a modified vehicle, then increase it.
Yeah. So that's if you're trading it in.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Now, if you're going to sell to a private party person,
okay.
Now that's a little differently. Sorry, I had to relook at my notes again.
Yep.
Getting it ready. Clean it. Have it professionally detailed.
Yeah, make it look as good as it possibly can, because that's eye candy and that helps get people interested. Do maintenance on it if you haven't already. You know, go ahead and say, well, look, I've just done plugs, I've done the coolant, the oil change, the filter's brand new. An old trick from the truckers world and the tractor world actually worked for me one time. I bought a oil filter that was white. I believe it was a Napa brand that was the white, and I wrote the mileage and date on it that most truckers do to remind them this is when it was last changed.
Right.
Well, the person was looking at the vehicle and they opened the hood and they're going, what's the writing on that? I said, oh, that's the date and time that was changed, and it was only about 3 weeks ago. He says, so you just did this? I said, yeah, I can show you the receipts for the components.
Yeah.
So that kind of lets people know that you're doing the maintenance and doing the service, and that they're getting something that's basically as ready to roll as whatever age vehicle is.
Well, that's like when I sold my my YJ. I asked for a premium price because I had a hard top, soft top, and a 3-ring binder that was 4 inches thick, full of every receipt of every part I put on that vehicle. And believe me, that was $16,000 in receipts.
Wow.
And every single one of them had a lifetime warranty, with the exception of the engine, from AutoZone. So not only were they buying the Jeep, but they're also getting
they were buying all the warranties.
The warranty too. So any receipts, any records, any maintenance you can keep up, great, put it on there. But again, when it comes to that pricing of that Jeep, remember what we talked about is that you're basically going to have ability. You're going to have to try and sell that Jeep as it is to a buyer that wants that Jeep as it is.
And you hopefully will get somebody who wants it as is.
Yeah. So unless you're putting a V8 swap in it. You know what I mean? You're probably not going to recoup your bumpers, your winch, and your lift and your tires.
Because there has to be those there anyway to make it a street legal vehicle. And the fact that you decided to put upgraded ones on to suit your fancy doesn't mean that it matters to anybody else.
Yeah, and that's on top of that when you do the marketing aspect, because if you trade your vehicle in, they're going to do the marketing. They have a marketing department that's going to take care of that. We actually call those bug zapper Jeeps.
Yeah, because they sit out on the lot and attract attention.
And they attract attention, but you have to do your own marketing. So that's one of the things. Like, how in depth do you want to talk about your sale ad? Do you want to talk about everything you had? You do want to talk about that stuff, but you also want to make sure you get the right area. You're not going to post it in a sewing forum.
Yeah.
Think the marketplace and all these places have definitely been given. You've been given an edge to get your vehicle out there, but it's also a double-edged sword. If you're putting your Jeep up for sale in a Jeep group, everyone there already has Jeeps. They may already know the value of that lift. They may already know the type of work that was done by the shop.
But they are a target audience.
But they're your target audience, so it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
People are going to say, oh, you're asking too much. Everyone thinks you're asking too much because no one's going to say, well, hey, what's the least you'll take for something?
Yep.
Or the most you'll take. I had it backwards. What's the most you'll take for something? Everybody wants a deal.
Everybody wants the least.
When you set your price, how bad do you want to get rid of it? Do you want to get a quick sale? Do you not really want to sell it, but you're kind of forced to because you have to, so therefore you price yourself out of the market? That's up to you. Again, that's all part of the marketing aspect of it. There's lots of tools out there that could help you with that.
Yep.
What type of Jeep? Is it a JK? Is it a 4-door? Is it a LJ that doesn't have a whole lot of, my LJ, for instance, Kelly Blue Book on it's $8,000. You know, we all know that LJs fetch a premium price.
Well, yeah, and that surprises me when I look at things out there that some of the older Jeeps right now, KBB is still talking about Jeeps that we know, at least in our area, you know, TJs with 100,000, 115,000 are fetching 15 to 18,000 right now in a lot of places, as long as they're not rusted out. Now, mechanically, they don't have to be perfect, but if they're not rusted out from salt water. It's like, that's twice what KBB's showing. But then again, you know, the weird thing is some of the, what did you call them, Scott, bug zapper Jeeps?
Yes, bug
zapper are actually fetching less because people don't necessarily want the mods that you wanted. So you kind of have to look at it and go, okay, it's not what I want for my Jeep, it's what does the rest of the world want and is willing to pay for it. Somebody may be looking at your Jeep that you think is built to an absolute T, and they're already calculating, okay, how much do I have to spend to take that off and replace that, take this off and replace that, and do I want to even do that work?
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, again, polarizing subject, but the grumpers. You know, the Fab 4 grumpers that make your Jeep look like a stormtrooper? Kevin's giving me the hell
yeah. Sorry, I was giving him the, what the heck are you talking about? You're talking, I know what
the head tilt, you know, with the cowl thing, makes your Jeep look like a transformer that's gone bad.
Okay, yeah.
Moving on. If that's your taste, more power to you. But other people will go, I don't want that Jeep. You know, you might have spent, $2,000 on that bumper.
To get it hydro dipped and everything else.
You know, guess what? You're going to want to find a person that did exactly that. And then the first question they're going to ask you, well, why are you selling it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it because it was a fad and you fell out of it and, now you don't want it, or it's not what you wanted? You know what I mean? So the mods you do to a Jeep can definitely affect the resale value. Like if you want to stretch your TJ.
And sadly, most of them are not in the direction you think they're going to affect the price of the Jeep.
No.
You know, I'll be honest with you. When I mod my Jeep, everything that's done to slightly altered is a lost cause in my book.
Yeah.
If I get something, should I sell slightly altered someday? I don't really think I will be, but I'm sure it will sell someday. You know, there's got to be a point. It's going to outlive me, most likely. Not to be morbid, but the thing is that think about all the antique car shows. Which ones sell for the highest money?
The non-touched ones,
the untouched vehicles, the factory correct. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that we need factory correct Jeeps. Heck no. No. I'm talking about, I want to go for the capabilities. I want the trail. I want the, all of this stuff. But just, you have to be reasonable when you're selling your Jeep to understand that unless you're selling it to a fellow enthusiast with the exact same taste that you have, you're not going to get 100% of what you put into it back out of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that is a very polarizing subject. I know by saying this, I'm painting crosshairs on my email address, but one person kind of, the age-old, and you heard me talk about it. I talk about this show. I'm already confused now about, I would buy a Sport S Max tow.
Oh, that was last show.
The thing is that everyone keeps saying, well, the Rubicon has a higher resale value, the age-old, should I get a Rubicon or not? Mm-hmm. Now, again, my opinion is don't buy your Jeep for resale value because of this conversation we're having. Mm-hmm. But on the same token, too, if you're thinking about resale value, I would think like bolt-on, easy-to-remove add-ons.
Things that don't require you to drill holes or cut sheet metal.
Yes, because your taste might not be another one. Again, the best thing to do is put it back to stock or very mildly custom so someone else can change it to their taste and their styles.
Yeah.
Because resale value to me is one of those double-edged swords where it's kind of do we really buy anything for resale value with the exception of property?
Even that, I buy for function first, resale second.
Yeah.
But that's a very good point. Personally, I bought my Jeep because it was available. It was where it was for the right price that I wanted to pay. And, I've had that discussion before, very early shows, guys, that I like I like basically plain and simple and make it my way.
Yeah. I did it my way.
Well, yeah, I don't sing it, but it's my Jeep. It's built my way.
You did break dance it and mime it in the driveway earlier. I'm kidding, guys. He didn't do that.
Boy, he's really throwing a curveball here. But regardless, it's just the way I like it. But I'm not planning on flipping it out for somebody else. If I was building a Jeep to flip, it would be a radically different Jeep. But I'm not into that. That's called a used car dealer. Or a custom mod shop, or whatever they call it, a fab shop. I built my Jeep for me, to do what I wanted to do. Gee, we've had a few subjects on that in various shows, but do what you want to do with your Jeep. And so, anyway, Scott, to bring this to the fruition, you said that on Quantum Entanglement, or I should say, Dory's JK, you actually did a lot of demodifying.
Yeah, no, I basically left the lift and the bumpers on it
because they were bolted
and the rest
on
of the sheet metal, but everything else I took off. And so far, I've netted almost $700 on all the stuff I sold.
Right now, that's not what you paid for the new stuff.
No, actually, it's about what I paid.
But oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I pretty much rented a Jeep for 9 years. Because the trade-in value I got and everything else and selling all this other money, I pretty much rented the Jeep for $1,000 a year for the last 9 years.
So that's not too bad.
No.
So it pays to be in the automotive business.
Well, no, it just pays to be frugal. Now, to be honest with you, as I just had another conversation about lifts, and someone wanted to do a cheap lift on their Gladiator, I said, whoa.
Why does everybody post? Anybody have a cheap? I hate the word cheap.
Great value of lifts.
No, but yes, I get it.
Yeah, you've seen that picture too, haven't you? Yeah. So my point though is I kind of, again, everyone said, well, Scott, how did you spend $1,600 on a budget lift? That doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, when you're trying to make stuff work and you buy used and you're constantly cheap, that goes against you.
And
so
you add this and you add that, and then you have to go buy this new to make that fit that, which didn't really come with this, but
needed it anyways, no matter how hard of a big hammer I used. But when it comes time to relift the LJ, I'm going to do one and done and buy a kit. When it comes time to, and yeah, some of it is stuff that's already on the Jeep, but you know what though? I don't know the history. I don't know how long it's been there. It's probably worn out. I'm just going to buy an inclusive kit and be done. Same thing with the Gladiator. I'm going to buy a one and done inclusive
pre-engineered, designed kit from a reputable manufacturer.
Pay once, buy once, cry once, pretty much. So, speaking of that and buying once and crying once, you want to take a little quick detour into the old Kevin's Garage?
Sure.
All right, cool. We will be right back after these important words. Hey, Jeepers, just a quick little reminder that don't forget all the fun-loving shows from the On the Trail podcast and the 4x4 radio network.
Nice how you got that reviewed reversed, but that works.
Well, one of the reasons why I am bringing this up, because some people have actually asked why their shows start at like episode 9 on iTunes. To answer the question honestly, we don't know why. iTunes only allows so many shows. So if you go to the onthetrailpodcast.com website,
our entire history of shows is
on the archive. So you can scroll down to show number 1 and listen to it on a different format, but you can still listen to it and all that and have all the shows there. And again, like always, you want to help the show out, patreon.com. We got a bunch of Patrons, exclusive content like the videos now we're going back to. Again, you can, as I'm waving, and you can see we have a face for radio. With that to, again, also, again, become a Patreon like Mark from WranglerFix.com and all the other great guys. And if you don't want to, if money's tight, just tell everyone about the show. Just say, hey, check these guys and gals out. Why did I say that? Anyways, it's been a long day.
Idea.
So with that, I'm going to get back to the garage and bye. So with that, hi Kevin.
Hi Scott.
So we're talking about making your Jeep yours and taking things off. So I want to do a quick little byline here.
Okay.
We talked about it before we started recording a little bit ago. Is about doing the trail cam on the Gladiator.
Adding a trail cam. And me, being the parts guy, not a technician, is like, all I can do is buy the camera and plug it in. Wah, wah. How many times you've heard this before? So I went on to a Gladiator forum, and I proceeded to follow someone who did doing the same thing. It was a $535 option, and so far this guy's $2,000 into wiring harnesses, brackets, cameras, and all this kind of stuff. Right. Just because the Jeep uses a modular format doesn't mean that they give you all of the Lego bricks except the last one. They've kind of left out a few of those Lego bricks. I'm sorry. Scott was over here trying to sneak a quick straw, and I've never seen anybody who failed to operate a straw properly.
We joke about reading the instructions and using a torque wrench. Moving on. So yes, you're right. They do everything except for that last Lego brick.
Yeah.
So
and guess what? It finds out that they left out about 2.5 kits worth of parts. Yeah, the plug to the ECU is there.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's about it.
Yeah,
you need an interpreter module for the video signal, the harness to the camera, the harness to the controls, the buttons on the steering wheel, or is it on the dashboard?
I don't know. So we found a company that actually sells a finger quotations, plug and play one that you have to pull pins out of the wiring harness. I'm going to look into that.
Because depinning a connector to put in their pins, as long as those pins are currently unused.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll just jam it in there. Got a pair of pliers. So, speaking of wiring and jamming things in there, I actually started thinking about something, though.
Uh-oh.
And the reason why I'm kind of like, when I do finally, I can download the instructions, which is what I'm going to do. I'm definitely going to download those instructions and let Kevin read them. But
I saw that coming.
So, with that, I started thinking about, because it talks about, like, you have to chase wires and do all this. And I'm like, you know what? I kept talking about it with Kevin about learning how to use a volt ohm meter.
And he can actually say it now.
I can actually say it now. And so I thought, you know what? If I'm going to tackle, I'm going to tackle, have you read the instructions to help me, this camera project, it might be a good idea to learn how to, that actually went into my lap. That drank. I feel it seeping through my underwear right now. It's very disturbing. So, in case anybody wonders, I spilled my drink a little bit. But the good news is, I kept it away from all the equipment. Sacrificed.
Yeah.
So the equipment's on the table, guys. Before you wonder why the laptop's in my lap. But anyway, so. Kevin took some time to teach me how to use a VU today, which is really kind of cool.
VOM. Yeah, VU is the meter that's on the recording right now.
I promise you all, I kind of know what I'm doing. So, saying that, and hold on, because you can't see it here, I'm actually doing this right now. I'm holding my VU
VOM, volt ohm meter.
Dang it. There. I'm holding it in my hand so Patreon viewers can see it. My volt ohm meter that Kevin actually
Just call it a multi-tester. It's also called a multi-tester.
Yes. So I learned how to use that today, and it's actually kind of funny we're bringing this up because I'm going to let Kevin explain things. What's even more funner is the fact of that four shows ago, we talked about the part sitting on the floorboard of my Jeep that we haven't changed out yet. As he's teaching me, he's like, if we only had a switch, I'm like, oh, we do. I haven't changed it yet. And Kevin gave me the large raised eyebrow going, it's still on the floor. And I'm like, yes, sir. So we go out and we decide to test it.
Folks, it's a 1-bolt change out, too. Outside the Jeep, no less.
Outside the Jeep. Finish that statement. Meaty paw arms, trying to get into the 7 slots.
Well, I wasn't saying anything about the skill of the operator.
Yeah. And what makes it even more funny, I take my rings off, set them on the hood of the Jeep.
That was hilarious.
And I'm sitting there, I take my watch off and just put it on top of the hood, and I'm getting in there, I'm going,
imagine, if you will, he's standing in front of a red TJ with a big Q winch on it, so he's reaching around that through the slots in the grill, trying to undo a bolt that's facing forward, so the nut is facing backwards
towards the condenser.
So it's hot. And it's hot, and I'm going, do you really want to do that? Yeah, I've got it. And he managed to not wound himself taking the
I like how you preface this.
Not, in taking the sensor bolt loose. Then he promptly could not get the sensor unplugged, left that for me, and then went to put his jewelry back on.
My rings that were sitting out in the hot sun.
It was sitting in the hot sun, and his ring is a dark metal with a black band, and it was probably about 135 degrees in the Florida sun.
On top of a hot TJ hood.
And I hear him screaming over there. I was like, what's the matter?
Like, rings hot. And then I promptly put them in my pocket. You'd think I'd learn, You'd think I'd learn.
Yeah, well.
So this is where I'm going to let the professor take over, because it was actually kind of funny, because I think I was a pretty good student, because Kevin will actually still teach me things now. But the mysticism on a VU meter,
VOM meter,
volt meter, basically is funny, because when I did car stereo installation, everyone's going to laugh, I just kind of turned until I went beep, beep, beep. Okay, I got continuity. Yeah, that wire's good. Okay, I'm going to keep hitting buttons until I see 12 volt on the battery. Okay, good. I got 12 volts. We're good. I know how to use one. So Kevin, I'm going to turn this over to you. What do you think, buddy?
No, you made great progress. He is working with a older unit. For those of you who know what a volt ohm meter is, or even more importantly for those who don't, he's got a I don't even know what brand it is.
It's the $12 brand.
Yeah, it's actually it's better than the usual $12 brand. It's a decent mini meter. It is a manual meter, however, with a digital readout. And what that means is that it has different switch settings for ranges, not just volt, ohm. You actually have to pick what range. Are you working in a 200 volt scale, a 20 volt scale, a 2 volt scale? Are you working AC or DC voltages? Are you doing amperage? Are you doing resistance? Are you doing continuity? I'm not going to try and teach you guys verbally how to use a voltometer. There's plenty of videos out there that show you the best way to use them. But the biggest thing to know when you're getting a voltometer is a couple of things. And it really, when Scott and I were doing it, I have a fluke meter myself, and it's a pretty good 700 series. Not the most expensive by any stretch of the imagination, but what it is it's really nice because it is digital and what they call auto ranging. And now what we had to do with Scott was make sure he understood that he was checking. We used it for checking the temperature sensor for the ambient air on the Jeep up front in the grill. We took it out because his air conditioner was misbehaving. Right. And unbeknownst to me, the wiring diagram doesn't tell you this, but when you dig into the programming, the Jeep TJs have the possibility, I will say, of 2 ambient air temperature sensors, and they're one on the driver's side, one on the passenger side, and they're little black sensors that kind of little blunt points sticking up into the airstream that's coming through the radiator. One of them is fed information back to the PCM or ECM. Technically it's both in a Jeep, powertrain control and engine control. And the other one, if you have the optional auto dimming mirror with a temperature. And so interesting, they don't share. I was not aware of that myself till we started digging through the factory service manual wiring diagram and found out, nope, it's not. Now, all it is a resistor, a variable resistor, often called a thermistor, but basically it means is the higher the temperature, the resistance changes, it cools, it changes the other way.
Which is one thing Kevin neglected to tell me, because I'm holding the thermistor and I'm holding the probes, and he's like, what's the reading? I don't know, it's going up. Kevin, well, why is it going up? And he's kind of chuckling because he's holding the thermistor with his body heat is going up.
And I'm making
the resistance
it go up.
change. I'm like, what? Here I am thinking I'm doing it wrong.
And I'm making the thermometer, for lack of a better term, in the little plastic
heat up
as he's reading, and it keeps changing the...
So for those of you who say I'm too rough on Kevin, he gets me back. He really does.
In subtle ways. But the key here was to show him that this is one of the ways, and we were looking for one example that you use a tester, is a lot of the sensors on your Jeep are based on a variable resistor. Believe it or not, your volume control on your radio is a variable resistor, and a lot of the older radios too. So it's the same idea.
TPS sensor.
Yeah, and what did you basically said? Oh, like the little slot car speed controllers.
There's off and under the couch.
Yeah, But what we were doing there was checking. Most of those 2-wire sensors are typically thermistors, thermal resistors. And so we were showing him that, okay, here's the new one, and this is the value, and it was 9,000 kilo ohms, and it would vary as I heated it up or cooled down. The old one did the same, but it was off about 2,000 kilo ohms, or 2K as they call it, from the new one. So we went ahead and changed it out. It wasn't failed, but the range was wrong. Now the other option, fail, is when you test the probe and it's either 0 ohms, or which means it's a dead short, or it's infinite, which means it's broken. And so you can use it for that. We showed him a little bit about turning it to the little thing that looks like 3 curved lines. It's kind of like a noise symbol. And it's the beeper that tells you continuity.
Yeah, which is kind of really cool to have, because that's when I use a lot when in car stereo wiring, because I'm like, oh crud, I have 8 wires. Which one was this wire again? Beep. beep. Okay, that was my plus wire.
The downside is you have to get to both ends of a wire to make sure, and it just tells you if you got broken wires.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about how to use the amperage setting on the dial, and you do have to move the leads around on both meters to different positions to do the amperage unless you're doing really small amounts.
Yes.
And we showed that. I did that with him a couple of months ago when I was tracing out the blown circuit. It led to our great rip the entire wiring harness out of Slightly Altered and rebuild it on the bench in a day.
Yeah, well, that was fun, though.
You have strange senses of fun.
Oh, come on. Don't be such a drama king. You liked it, too.
I like that I now have backup lights that don't pop fuses and a gas gauge that works perfectly.
Yes, and a Jeep that'll start because you forgot to make the weather pack connector for it.
No, that too.
Why am I harassing you? I need you to help me do the same thing with my fog lights.
Yeah, well, so, the thing is, folks, a voltometer is a really good tool to have in a Jeep's tool bag.
Yeah.
Because wiring is going to bite you, particularly if you wheel it hard. Tree limbs, shrubbery like to reach up and grab things.
Or coming down too hard on your gas tank skid and shoving your gas tank lid or top of your gas tank into the bottom frame rail, cracking all the plastic that holds your fuel pump together. Yeah, that was a recent post.
Yeah, that was.
The skid plate worked, though.
Yeah, the skid plate worked, but, and there's just a lot of things like that can go wrong or get abraded or abused. Even the basic construction on a TJ, I hate to say, there are places like I had where, after 135,000 miles, the rubbing and vibrating of the engine against the firewall where the harness was laying rubbed through the outside plastic loom, through the pre-loom tape, and then through the insulation on the wire, shorting everything out.
Yeah.
And trying to find one broken wire in 18 feet of what was it? I'm trying to remember. White with a green stripe.
White with a green stripe, yes.
And it takes a little bit of sensing. And there's tricks you can use. It's a good tool to use. If you're buying one outright, nowadays the prices have come down pretty low for what you get. I'd probably recommend an auto ranging because then you don't have to worry about, am I working with 20 volts or 200 volts? Just remember the little line with the dots underneath it is DC for your Jeep. The little line with the C wave on top underneath it that kind of goes up and down like a sine wave. Don't mess with that. That's your AC. That's your house current. And if you're not sure what you're doing, don't go sticking your probes in the AC outlet. Please, I don't want to hear about you being hurt.
That is definitely a Band-Aid boo-boo strip moment.
Yeah, if not a 911 moment. Amperage on VOMs. Amperage checking is a grain of salt. Make sure you know what you're doing. Scott's, as I told him, it's both his and mine are 10 amp. Yeah. The difference is his is 10 amps with a physical glass tube fuse inside. So if he pulls 8.1, he's opening up the meter and putting a new. And tell me the last time you saw one of those 1/4-inch glass tube fuses
on a 72 Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas the newer ones have circuit breakers and overload protection, so they won't do it. Now, do I use it? Oh yeah. It is a great when you're trying to track down why a fuse is blowing, and as long as the fuse is 10 or low, and I know there are higher ones, but you can also get VOMs with higher amperage, but I actually take the fuse out and plug the leads in from the amp meter in place of the fuse.
Yeah.
And then I can watch the draw and I can move wires around, and then all of a sudden I see it spike to overload. Oh, gee, I've got the area where the short is.
Yeah, well, and the one thing you talked about really cool is one of our friends with his TJ, the Bert, he caught his blower motor on fire.
Yep.
And you taught a really cool idea that you can, I honestly think it's almost a maintenance thing. Once a year, take these probes and put it to the horseshoe.
Yep.
You reminded me to talk about the horseshoe.
The horseshoe is ohms or resistance.
And you have the blower motor off, you unplug it, and you put the terminals on the two wires or whatever.
And read the coil ohmage.
And if it's over a certain amount, then it might be time to swap out. As
they age, you will watch their ohmage go up due to wear and tear. And as the ohmage goes up, the amperage draw also will go up. because it needs to produce the power to spin the fan as the fan gets worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
And you can kind of get a warning that it's going to die. And rather than it blowing and taking out your speed control resistor pack, it's just a lot of fun with a VOM meter. And yes, I realize I'm a little twisted on what I call fun. You don't have to send me emails and tell me that. But
on the trail podcast at gmail.com. Attention, Kevin.
But it's a great tool, and we're probably talking about, we've got some interest from folks about us doing a little bit of a video about just basic VOM use with your Jeep, and we may do that if we get enough of you that say, hey, yeah, I'd watch that. Because like I said, for me, when it's an electrical issue, everybody's, break out the computer. I talked about last time looking into a programmer. This isn't programmer stuff. This is about why'd my left fog lights out and my right one's still lit, and
every time I honk the horn, the wipers go.
Well, and that's VOM kind of stuff. Okay, voltometers meters
or a priest.
And then I don't go priest. I go power probe.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, power probes are great tools, but they are basically a little tiny voltometer, skinny down to just 12 volt functions, and long leads.
Yes.
But otherwise, you can do anything you can do with power probe with a VOM, just with maybe some extra wire and some alligator clips. So both are good, and maybe we'll talk about that further if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And again, we need you to tell us what you're interested in, because as we've said since day one, this is really your show, not ours.
Yeah, we're just the talking heads.
Yeah.
Well, actually, he's the talking heads, and the validity and the instructional and the smarts. I'm the fart jokes.
Okie dokie, folks. You know where that one went.
No, I'm kidding. No, and that's fun. We like to have fun because Kevin and I talk about this being infotainment. So, anything else while we're here in your garage, sir? Because I think we covered our list.
We're doing pretty good. Still fighting my step motor, but as we've said many times, I figured it down to a linkage issue, and my linkage is binding, and they're 5 years old, and they've been over trail and yonder and through creeks and over wander, and there's a few dents in the sheet metal. And
what? You actually wheel it? No.
When people doubt me, I'm just like, that's fine. Doesn't hurt my feelings. I know what I do.
Hey, we have a really cool picture on aluminum to prove it. Thank you, good Mark.
Yeah, I love it how mistakes are the coolest pictures.
Yeah.
Well, I admit I was not paying attention as I was doing a hill climb over a wash gully. You guys that have been in Georgia know what I'm talking about. One of them orange stripes or scars down a hillside where the rainwater comes down and carves a V-notch.
Yeah.
And it's not quite big enough to be on the right side, not quite big enough to be on the left side, so you straddle the trench.
Mm-hmm.
And when the trench makes an abrupt turn to the right and you're on the CB radio doing something, trying to coach somebody else somewhere else, and you aren't paying attention, and the butt end of your Jeep decides, I'm going to go play in the bottom of that ditch.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of a neat little picture with dust flying everywhere, and yeah. No, I didn't roll the Jeep. No, it felt like it was going to, but it didn't roll the Jeep. And it's good news, because it was Scott and Dory behind me in their Jeep following me up the line. And if I'd rolled over, I'd have been on top of them, and we'd had a double-decker Jeep.
Hey, at least they're both same color.
Does that mean we would have had to start talking in an English accent if it was a double-decker?
Nope. I'm going to stop you right there.
But anywho, no, we're hanging in there. Every day, one more step, in the progress of life. We are in Florida, rainy season, hurricane season. Knock on wood, we're not going to have to fight the hurricane thing.
Well, the show is being released on July 1st, so
I know when the show is being released. I just know that I'm going to be cutting grass every week. And upwards of
2 properties
right now, 2 different properties, and I haven't done jeeping, folks, because as Scott's laughing, one of the things I was doing on our new property, there was an old carport, and it was all right. 20 years old.
It was functional,
and I got into it and I cleaned it up, straightened it up, dug beside the post, and made it back straight up and down, and then proceeded to reframe and skin it in and put a door on it and turn it into a small barn, about 20 by 24 feet by about 8 feet high inside, as a place to put my tractor.
It's a tractor house.
It is a barn for a tractor, and it's implements, because there's about 3 acres of land out there that's all grass. There's not a tree. There's not a shrub. There's some weeds, but there's a lot of Bahia grass. And right now, with the rain, the sun, and 90-some freaking degrees.
No, you're forgetting a key ingredient.
Yeah.
102% humidity.
Well, that too.
I just said humidity.
I got a lot of grass to cut.
Yeah.
So I'm hurrying. We are building a new home, if that hasn't come apparent to you. We bought the property last year. We're working with a great builder right now. It's a very interesting home. It will also include a significant barn, not this little one. This one's just a temporary.
Yeah.
And this new barn will house a brand new OTT garage facility. I'm hoping to put in a 4-post lift, as well as some shop space, a little studio, and a little man cave in the corner. And we'll definitely let you know, and we'll put a video out showing you through the new spaces. But that's probably still a good year away before we get that far. But in the meantime, I'm taking care of 2 properties.
Yes. And pretty soon it's gonna be Kevin and Scott and Man Cave in the Corner.
Well,
that's gonna be our radio name.
Oh heavens!
Man Cave. You're the corner. And that's, kids, is how you not be invited back to this house.
Oh well, I knew that when I started the show with him.
And that's the thing. As I going back to the wiring thing, I joke. I mean, because as far as wiring goes, I really did fumble my way through the VOM meter, but it actually is kind of nice to know, because I do know how to wire it. I do know some stuff.
Yeah, you do.
But it's kind of nice to take that few extra moments to know. And again, seeing it how you used as a tool, and I hate to go back to it, but it's actually really cool, because in the business I do, way too much parts changer. Way too much, just swap the part out, this is what's wrong, and doom it. $2,000 later, we're still swapping parts. And I told the story 1,000 times about, spending $800 on my $500 truck for a $50 problem. It's taking that time to learn to use these meters can save you a ton of money, because then you can see current draw. You can actually diagnose stuff.
That's the thing.
That's the key.
And I tell folks, particularly for the Wranglers, almost all of the earlier models, and I'll say even now the JK's factory service manuals are becoming available online as downloads, and I got to give props to Chrysler for that. For Jeep, their service manuals are absolutely fantastic. They are, for me, well organized, with good data. Each section of the vehicle, you were talking about your air conditioner. There's a chapter. What's it called? Air conditioning and heating.
Yeah.
And you go there, and the first thing it does is it tells you this is how the system's intended to work. Then you get down to a paragraph on operations. It tells you, well, the ECM reads this, and then it triggers that. And if you turn your switch on, your switch actually goes out and checks the high pressure and the low pressures, and then it feeds back to the ECM, and the ECM then actually engages the relay to bring the clutch in.
Yeah, I made the joke about it being like, the ECM's Houston and the switch is the go, no go for launch, go, no go for launch, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got AC.
Yeah.
The days of the old,
you threw a switch on the dash and 12 volts flew out there and did something magical.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, like, me being guilty of this, I'm thinking, well, just throw 12 volts to it, see if it comes on. I never knew it talked to 3 different switches before. So, yeah, you could send 12 volts down the line and it'll work. Until it doesn't.
Until something dies, usually catastrophically. And you start to see, if you're willing to take the time, and I'm not telling you that everybody needs to, but I think it's a great idea. The sections include things on, okay, here's the wiring diagram. They're scary at first. First time you look at a wiring diagram, you kind of go, oh,
your eyes glaze over and you go, what am I doing?
All fairness to friends in England, it looks like the underground map of, London. And but you start to realize after you've used 1 or 2 for something simple, and I tell folks, if you're going to use it, if you can't get some help to start the first time, just start at something you recognize. The battery. Okay. Yeah. And it'll show you, here's the battery. And here's the battery. There's only like 5 or 6 pages, and they're fairly simple for the AC system, but you go to the one, oh, look, there's the battery. And then you can trace it from the plus side and go, okay. And then you start to go, wait a minute, what are these weird little numbers? Well, you go back to the index of that section, and it tells you. Well, that's the wire gauge. That's the pin in the connector. S means a splice with some other circuit. C means it's in a connector. Well, where the hell's that connector? Well, gee, there's a whole table of connectors
and
pictures where they're at.
Yeah.
And they even tell you what color they are, so that you know that's the gray one or the white one. And all of a sudden, you really quickly, just without even doing anything, you start to become more familiar with how your Jeep works, where problems can lie, and you start going down and you start saying, well, okay, here's a trinary switch telling me it's high pressure or it's low pressure, and how does that affect? And the neat thing is they're simplified because they don't show grounds. They don't show the chassis ground. They just show a little dot with a G, and that simply means it's the wire. It's the black wire that goes over that screw that you unscrewed on the firewall, or that one screw under the left driver's door speaker that seems to have 15,000 black wires going to it. That's the dash ground, Oh, so that one on the firewall is G103, and the one on the other side is G105. Oh, so anything. Oh, that thing I took off. Let me go see what else is under G10. Oh, I shouldn't have taken that away. And, that's the kind of stuff. You suddenly start to understand your Jeep as a system, and it really helps, when you're troubleshooting issues, is what can go wrong.
And if you want to, like if you have your own Jeep group out there, you get one of these things and you collectively on your own have a learning day. Mm-hmm. Get a couple of texts and you sit there and host your own learning party. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong. You guys can't have, once the social gathering, you can come back together with this stuff. But use these manuals and the time to learn about your Jeep, because on the trail, it's everyone, everyone gets out together. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Everyone can teach each other. You save more money for Jeep mods and, going out to dinner or whatever. So it's actually a very you have a vested interest to do this, to learn, so that way, like you said,
what was it?
Systems.
It was, now granted, this was major surgery, pulling the harness off, but I had a broken wire in my Jeep harness. Most people would have I got to replace the harness.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did we come up with that harness?
Oh, that harness was like $3,000.
$3,000 if you can find it.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's discontinued. The actual repair was about 15 cents for the heat shrink self-soldering connector to replace the damaged area. 8 hours, well, it was about 6.5 hours to find it. Now, what's the average labor rate for a tech?
Depending on where you're at, but anywhere from 50 to 120.
Okay, so at 7 hours, that could be anywhere from $350 to $700. Okay, for a 15-cent repair, or $3,000 plus the hours to pull and replace the harness. So I saved a lot of money, even though it was a little bit of a head knocker. I made some improvements. I headed off some other problems, and everybody looks at me and goes, "You pulled your engine harness out of your Jeep and replaced it. Does it still run?" Yeah, it runs fine. It really does.
Well, you took it methodical.
Yeah, and I think my expense was the heat shrink tubing, about a 6-foot piece of red-orange wire to replace the fuel pump lead
repair that someone else did.
A little bit of blue tape for marking which wire was plugged where.
And you did some upgrades with the proper heat shrinking tubing and the other stuff. You went a little overkill, but you won't.
I think I may have spent $10.
Yeah. Well, 20 including lunch.
Well, that's true. I did pay for lunch. But, and that's the thing, folks, is that this isn't just a geek's way of getting a jollies out of the wiring. This is a chance for you to do your own work, save a heck of a lot of money. And I underline a heck of a lot of money. If you take the time. The downside, if you don't take the time to get smart, you can do a heck of a lot of damage.
Right.
But it's not difficult. It's just electricity in a wire, and it's not even dangerous electricity. It's 12 volts. Okay.
It's taking your time and being methodical.
Well, where are we?
I think it's about time we go ahead and shift the Jeep in 4-low and hit the trail.
I'll close the garage door first, please.
Hold on. Was it up, up, down, down, left, right, circle A, select, B, start?
Down.
Down. Oh, okay, hold on.
Well, folks, as always, we've talked this through quite enough. We want to thank you for listening. We hope you check back in another 2 weeks for the next episode of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. To say it properly, enough talking. Time to lock ups, at least those of us who have locking ups, and put it in 4 low.
And always don't forget to take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail.
Please, we want to keep them open for our kids and our kids' kids.
Exactly. So with that, we're signing off. TTFN.
Bye now.
Bye. Bye.